بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ولا شبيه ولا مثيل له ولا ضد ولا ند ولا جسد ولا صورة ولا أعضاء له. كان الله ولا مكان فهو الآن على ما عليه كان. فلا تضربوا لله الأمثال ولله المثل الأعلى. تنزه ربي عن الجلوس والقعود وعن الحركة والسكون وعن الاتصال والانفصال. لا يحل فيه شيء ولا ينحل منه شيء ولا يحل هو في شيء، لأنه ليس كمثله شيء. مهما تصورت لبالك فالله لا يشبه ذلك. ومن وصف الله بمعنى من معاني البشر فقد كفر. وأشهد أن سيدنا وعظيمنا وقائدنا وقرة أعيننا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله ونبيه وصفيه وحبيبه وخليله، أرسله الله هدى ورحمة للعالمين، هاديا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه سراجا وهاجا وقمرا منيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وأعظم وأنعم وأكرم على هذا النبي الكريم سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين، كلما ذكره الذاكرون وغفل عن ذكره الغافلون. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا حبيب الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا عظيم الجاه. أما بعد، فنذكر أنفسنا بإخلاص النية لله تعالى في حضور هذا المجلس، مجلس علم الدين، لأن مجالس علم الدين تحفها الملائكة فتنزل فيها الرحمات والبركات والأسرار. I praise Allah, I glorify Him, I thank Him for all the blessings that He gives without Him being obligated. And I ask Allah to raise the rank of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and to protect his Muslim nation. I testify that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah, the one without a partner, the one without an equal, the one without a similar, the one who is unlike anything in the universe, and nothing in the universe is like Him. He has no father, no mother, no sister, no brother, no son, and no daughter. He exists without time and place because He is the creator of time and place. He does not reside above the throne, and He is not attributed with fatigue, like the Jews say. Our Lord is glorified beyond any imperfection that the non-Muslims attribute to Him. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah Ta'ala does not resemble that. And whoever attributes an attribute of the creations to Allah is outside of Islam. And I testify that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul the son of Hashim, the son of Abdul Manaf, from the tribe of Quraysh, is the best creation of Allah and His final prophet and messenger sent to all humans and jinn, and He is truthful about everything that He conveyed in the revelation. Thereafter, remind ourselves to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah in attending this session of Islamic knowledge, because having the sincere intention is a requirement to get the reward. So the Muslim, whenever he does a good deed, he has to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah to get a reward for that good deed. The reward is defined as the compensation that the Muslim receives in the hereafter for the good deeds that he did in this life among what makes him happy. An example of the reward that is guaranteed to the righteous Muslim in the grave is that his grave is expanded approximately 105 feet by 105 feet, and his grave is illuminated with a light similar to the light of the full moon, and the fragrance of paradise will be present in the grave. The sincere intention means for the Muslim to do the good deed, seeking the acceptance of Allah only, and not the praise of the people. So alhamdulillah, we are grateful to Allah, we are thankful to Allah that we have been guided to Islam. We are grateful and thankful to Allah that He has endowed upon us the endowment of Islam, which is the greatest endowment. The endowment of Islam is the greatest endowment that we can receive, because Islam is the key to paradise. And so this is for the one who dies as a Muslim. He has the good news that he will eventually enter paradise. He has the good news that he will eventually have mercy, because the Muslim, if he's pious and righteous and he dies in that situation, in that circumstance, so then he would be guaranteed to have safety and security from torture or from any pain or from any discomfort or from any disturbance or annoyance, and he would be free from sadness. He would never feel sadness after death, because the pious Muslim, the Muslim who fulfills all the obligations and refrains from all the sins, and he dies in that state, he will be, he has a guarantee that he will receive no torture in the hereafter, and that he will only receive bliss and euphoria and enjoyment. So that's for the pious Muslim. The pious Muslim gets that guarantee. Now, if someone is not a pious Muslim, and the sins that they have are enormous sins, and they die before repenting from those enormous sins, that Muslim sinner in the hereafter, he might be forgiven. And so he won't experience any torture, he won't experience any suffering, he won't experience any pain, he won't experience any sadness. He'll be forgiven, and he'll have the everlasting bliss, and he'll have the enjoyment and the euphoria. Or he's punished, the Muslim sinner, if Allah did not forgive him, he'll be punished either in the grave only, and that will be a maximum of 7 days torture in the grave for the Muslim sinner, and then after that he might experience no torture, or he might be tortured also on Judgment Day, after resurrection, as he's being gathered, as he's being questioned. He'll experience the heat of the sun, etc. And then that'll be it. Or you'll also enter hellfire. And if the Muslim sinner enters hellfire, he will remain in hellfire until Allah wills for him to exit. some Muslims, they exit after their term in hellfire has ended, and meaning after the time that they are getting tortured for their sins that they did, or before that time. So they'll get tortured some of the time, and then they'll be forgiven for the rest of the time. They'll get out early, and they'll get out before they get the complete punishment for the sins that they died with. Because they might, for example, get punished for some of their sins, and for the rest they'll be forgiven. That's the situation of the Muslim. So either way, in any case, any way, the Muslim ends up in paradise, because even the Muslim sinner that goes through hell, he'll eventually be taken out of hell and he'll go to paradise. And it's mentioned in the Quran about the Muslims that they're going to be in hellfire, because this is how we know that there for sure will be some Muslims that go to hell. So we know that some Muslims will go to hell because in the Quran, and that's one of the proofs, because in the Quran it's mentioned that there will be some Muslims in hellfire, and that the blasphemers in hellfire, they will say words to those Muslims who are in hellfire. They'll direct some words to those Muslims who are in hellfire, the non-Muslims. So this is all in the hereafter, this is all, and we know this from the future because it was revealed. So in the Quran it says that the non-Muslims who are in hell, because they're vile and wicked, they're in that situation that they're in, being tortured, they're going to talk negatively and talk in a hostile way and try to belittle the Muslim and degrade the Muslim even when they're in hell. So they're going to say to the Muslims, what did your belief in Islam benefit you? You're here with us. That's what the non-Muslims are going to say to some of the Muslims who are in hell. They're going to say, what did your La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, what did it benefit you? And you're here in hellfire too. So at that point, guess what happens? Imagine what happens. An angel, this is the truth, an angel will call out, and the people of hell will hear him, and that angel will be saying, anyone who died while believing in La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah now gets to exit, now gets to leave hellfire and go to paradise. And at that moment, the emotional distress that the non-Muslim feels when he hears that is enough that he would die if it was possible. Because after you die, after death, there is no death. After death, it's immortality. See, the misguided people, the agents of the Shaitan, who have their own little secret groups, and they do a lot of ugly things, and this has been basically confirmed through many reports. But anyway, these people, they do human sacrifices, and they do things with filth like feces and urine and blood. They do rituals. But anyway, these people, they try to get immortality here in this world, and that's where they've been deluded. But anyway, after death, there is no death. So those non-Muslims, when they hear the angels say, anyone who died with La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, they get to leave hellfire. And then all the Muslims, they exit. They leave hellfire. And they all end up in paradise. Before they end, those Muslims that were in hellfire, before they make it to paradise, they stop at Al-Hawd, the basin, which is like a giant body of water, light water. and it is whiter than milk and sweeter than honey. And that Muslim who came out of hell, he's gonna have the traces of being burned on his body. And he's gonna be feeling very thirsty, so he's going to submerge himself in that hell, in the basin, and he's gonna drink from it. And his body is going to recuperate. And he's gonna get healed instantly, and he's going to never feel thirst ever again. And then he enters paradise. So that is the merit and the virtue of La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah. Dying with that creed in your heart, it will save you from going to hell forever. And that's a great benefit, especially for the one who, let's say, gets punished and goes to hell. The Muslim that gets punished and goes to hell, he's going to appreciate that virtue and that value of dying as a Muslim when he gets taken out of hell. As for the non-Muslims, they're going to feel such emotional distress that if it were possible for them to die, they would die just from the feeling of seeing the Muslims leaving, and that they know that they have to dwell in there forever. Subhanallah. May Allah protect us from hellfire. And we're also grateful and thankful to Allah that we have been given access to the authentic knowledge of Ahl Sunnah that is validated through the authentic, confirmed chains of narration, the chains of transmission. Al-Isnad. This term in Arabic is called Al-Isnad, and it is the chain of transmission. So this is also a great value and a great benefit, because that is the only way for the Muslim to get the information that he needs so that he can properly follow the Prophet ﷺ, so that he can properly fulfill the obligations that Allah Ta'ala made an obligation upon him, and so that he can properly avoid the sins, so that he can properly live his day-to-day life in compliance with what Allah Ta'ala revealed. There is no other way. So otherwise, the one who does not follow, the one who doesn't have the proper information, the one who doesn't have what the Prophet ﷺ came with, then that person is going to be making many mistakes, making many errors, and assuming things, imagining things, thinking things, or certain things are halal when they're not, thinking certain things are haram when they're not, perhaps believing a misguided creed and they're unaware because they never learned the proper knowledge. So all those are great dangers of not having access to that information. Because at the end of the day, the individual journey from birth to death is something that nobody can live for you. So you have to make sure that you are on the right path and on the right trajectory. And there's no way for you to be sure about that if you're ignorant. So you have to know. So the first step in that process, to be an obedient, law-abiding Muslim, a Muslim that follows the law that was revealed by God, the law revealed by the Creator of the universe. So the one who wants to do that, he wants to be sure that he's doing that, he has to learn what it is. And since we are the final nation, since the Prophet ﷺ is the final prophet and messenger that was sent to this earth, his law, the law that was revealed to him, shall remain intact. It will never be lost. As long as there's Muslims on the earth, it will never be lost. It will never be perverted. It will never be erased from history. It will never be disconnected from the information that the Prophet ﷺ came with. Because we're the final nation. And we are the best nation. And the best nation that ever followed the Prophet. And the best Muslims as a group. All the Muslims from the time of the Prophet ﷺ until Judgment Day, they're the best overall. So I say that because there's a lot of people that they identify themselves with Ahlul Sunnah, but in reality they are deviant. But they're also not Wahhabis, but they claim to be Ahlul Sunnah, but they're also not Wahhabis. And their deviance stems from not being like precise and meticulous with the information that they absorb. So basically, they'll read a book that is attributed to an Imam of Islam, an Imam of Ahlul Sunnah, but they don't have any connection to that book through the chain. They only have the physical copy of the book in their hands, or in some cases, or many cases, a search engine. Whether that were Google or whether that were a specified search engine known as the encompassing library. It's called Al-Maktabat Al-Shamila, the encompassing library. So basically, some people, what did they do? They literally digitized, not digitized, but not like PDFs. They, I guess, typed out, or they made into like a searchable format entire books in Islam, like Al-Bukhari, the explanation of Al-Bukhari, Muslim, the explanation of Muslim, books of tafsir, dictionaries, so that when you have this program on your device or your computer, you just type in a keyword. For example, you want to learn about nikah, you want to learn about talaq, you want to learn about marriage, you want to learn about divorce. This is what they do. They type in the word marriage, in Arabic obviously, nikah, and that whole entire library, that database that they have where the word nikah is, it'll be there with the name of the book, the name of the scholar, the time when the book was authored, etc. But remember, that's all manually inputted. So they rely on that. They read in that, and they say, oh look, this scholar said this, and this scholar said, and this book said that. And it'll be something completely wild. It'll be something completely wild. Something straight up blasphemy, something straight up like a wrong judgment. And so the ones who are in the culture of acquiring the knowledge, they know, especially from the authors of the past. Back then, before electricity and these types of instruments, people did things by hand. A scholar literally would write the book with his hand, or he would dictate. So he would have a scribe, and the scribe would listen, and he gives him word for word, and he writes it. That's one copy. So how are the people, let's say, going to learn and benefit? Let's say, like nowadays, you can just go to a library, get a book, you can go online, order a book, you can, whatever, you can print it yourself, you can have like the PDF, and you can print it yourself. It's easy, it's accessible. Back then, if you wanted the book, the latest book that a scholar wrote that he's teaching, you had to get someone to copy it by hand, word for word. So in that process, let's say if there was a vile, wicked person who wanted to, whether he was being serious or joking, playing around, like with full intent or not, change something. A vile, despicable person would change something. And so now supposedly there's a copy of this scholar's book. It's got his name on it, his reputation, his credibility. And then there's this misguidance that was inserted in there by someone, one of the scribes, or someone that was trying to be a scribe. And now that book is being circulated with that mistake in there, with that incorrect information. And so someone might say, a secularist or an atheist might say, oh, this is a flaw in your system. Because look how easy it is to insert. We say no. Because in our system, we have a vetting process. We have a fact-checking process. We have a verification process. What is it? The mouth-to-mouth transmission. From the mouth of the teacher who took that material. So if it's written there in the book, a mistake or something, when, let's say, the student reads that sentence that's in the book, that teacher's going to be like, what is that? that's a mistake, or there's a sentence missing, or there's a word missing, or the proper, or let's say, meaning is this, and he would fix it. And that's what will be taken through acquisition. Not just reading the book blindly without verification. So these people nowadays, that's what they do. They go on those search engines, or they might even buy the books themselves, and they're old books. Like, you can see them, the pages are yellow. Sometimes the pages are very fragile, like if you bend it, it'll snap. And it's there, you can literally read it. Could be a manuscript. There's manuscripts still. Here in America, there's a lot of manuscripts in the Library of Congress. They keep them so that nobody else can have them. They might let you get a copy, but you have to go through a process. But the original, they keep it for themselves. They don't let anybody have it. The point is, not just because you find something written in a book that is authored by a well-known imam and scholar of Islam, that doesn't mean that that's like revelation. It's not. It has to be verified. And especially when that mistake or that misinformation goes against the mind. So the point is, the information has to be verified. A true Sunni seeker of knowledge, or imam or teacher of Ahlul Sunnah, they get their knowledge through the transmission, not through just reading books. The one who just reads books, he is not taking into consideration the culture of acquiring the knowledge of Islam. It is not. From day one, it is not. It has to be all by acquisition, because that's what gives you the credibility. Because it has to be traced back to the Prophet ﷺ. So if you never heard it from anyone, and you just read it from a book, how is that a connection? How is that a connection? It's just words on a page. But continuing on with this very beneficial book, that is, like we said, a beginner's book in the Islamic law according to the madhab of Imam Shafi'i, radiyallahu anhu, which is an undisputed Imam of Ahlul Sunnah, a Sunni Muslim who cleared Allah from residing in a place or in a direction. So Imam Shafi'i is what is known as a munazzih. He believed in at-tanzih, which means clearing Allah from defects and the attributes of the creations, and clearing Allah from similarity to the creations. So we reached up to types of water. And this is, like, officially now the beginning of the subject matter. What we went over previous, it was the introduction, which is where the author starts with the basmala, and he says Alhamdulillah, and he says As-salatu was-salam upon the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We explained all that, and he then spoke about his intention, why he authored this book. And we spoke a little bit about the author as well, that he is a righteous, pious Muslim. He was granted something extraordinary, a long life, 160 years. And on top of that, his senses did not get weaker. So his senses remained intact. So now we start with the first thing that the scholars of the Islamic law, especially in the Shafi'i school, I'm not sure about any other school. I know in the Hanafi school it's similar. The Maliki school, I believe, as well. I haven't been exposed to much works in the Hanbali school. But anyway, they begin speaking about water. So the first chapter or section is the types of water. So this section is going to be talking about the judgments that are related to purification, and it begins with types of water. So we're on page 22 for whoever is reading along. Like we said, the format that we're following is first we're going to read above the line, and then we're going to read below the line. So chapter of purification, Kitab al-Tahara, it means the chapter of the judgments, the rulings in the Islamic law pertaining to Tahara. So what is Tahara? Tahara, linguistically, it means cleanliness. So the word Tahara in the Arabic language, linguistically, means cleanliness. And religiously, Islamically, when we use the word Tahara in the Arabic language, in the context of the Islamic law, when we use the word Tahara, talking about Islamically, in the Islamic law, it has been defined as doing what makes you capable, or what makes it valid for you to pray. We're on page 22. So we're just explaining now the word Tahara, purification. So the word Tahara translates in English to purification. So when we say Tahara, purification, according to the Arabic language, it means cleanliness. And when we use it in the Islamic context, it has been defined as doing what makes it valid for you to pray. Like making wudu, like making ghusl, like making tayammum, like removing filth. And this is specific to the obligatory purification. And there is a definition that is broader and that encompasses all types of tahara, which is removing a ritual impurity, or removing filth, or what is like them, or in their format or image. And we'll explain that. So the author begins by types of water. Why does the author begin by types of water? Because water is the tool of purification. So in the Shafi'i school, purification, tahara, can only happen with water. So now the author is going to tell us what are the types of water that it is valid to use for purification. The types of water that are valid to use in purification are 7. Rainwater, seawater, river water, well water, spring water, melted snow, and melted hail. Water is divided into 4 categories. Pure and purifying water that is not disliked, and that is the plain water. Pure and purifying water that is disliked, which is sun-heated water. Pure water that is not purifying, which is the used water. Or water that was changed by what was blended with it of pure materials, and najis filthy water, which is the water that najis filth contacted while it was less than 2 qullas, or it was 2 qullas but changed. 2 qullas are approximately 500 Baghdadi riddles according to what is most correct. So this whole chapter here, we're going to break it down. I just wanted to read through the text so that you can get it through acquisition. Now we're reading below the line. The explanation is coming now, below the line. And we'll explain during the explanation as well. Linguistically in Arabic, the term kitab means to gather and put together. This is why they say kitab al-tahara, kitab of purification, because the author gathers the cases of purification together. In English, the term chapter is used. So translating into English, literally, kitab means book. So it's literally saying the book of purification. And so what does it mean when it says book in that context, kitab of purification? It means the section or any place where the judgments pertaining to purification have been gathered. Because what does a book do? It gathers pages and chapters and words. So the cases pertaining to purification are gathered in this book book, yani chapter. Tahara in the Arabic language means to clean oneself from material filth or clear oneself from a ritual impurity. So, to clean oneself from material filth or to clear oneself from bad attributes. So, I skipped the line. Tahara in the Arabic language means to clean oneself from material filth or to clear oneself from bad attributes. Religiously, the scholars gave different definitions for al-tahara. Some said it is to do what permits one to pray. So tahara in the Arabic language, it means to clean oneself from material filth or from bad attributes. Yani, if you have some dirt on your clothes and you clean it off, that's called tahara. And if you have, let's say, a bad characteristic, like a bad character trait, and you change it and you fix it and you clean yourself of it, you purify yourself from it, in Arabic that's also called tahara, linguistically. Now in the Islamic context and terminology, the scholars gave different definitions for tahara. Some said it is to do what permits one to pray. So they defined it like short like that. And that's not entirely accurate because there are things that we do that are Islamically called tahara that are other than what permits one to pray. What's an example of that? Who's in tune with the Islamic law that they know an example? What's an example of tahara that is not for the purpose of permitting you to pray? Okay, that's one, yes. However, they said that, intending doing what is like an obligation on you to do for that act. Okay, that would be an obligation too, yes. But those examples fit. They fit into the definition because it just says to do what permits you to pray. So according to that definition, if someone made, let's say, wudu to be able to make tawaf, then it's not included. And obviously it is included. It's just that it's showing how that definition is very non-inclusive. What's an example that you have?
What is the question?
An example of something that's tahara that's other than to permit you to pray.
And we say the shower of the Christian wife or the Jewish wife when she takes shower after menstruation.
Yeah, that's an example. That's also called tahara. I was going to say anything sunnah. Like when you make wudu for a sunnah reason. So for example, it's sunnah, if you make wudu, like to be on purification, and then you prayed a prayer, and then you wanted to pray another prayer, like let's say you wanted to pray another obligatory prayer, but you still kept your wudu, it's sunnah to make wudu again, to refresh your wudu. So you wouldn't have the intention of doing the obligatory wudu, it would be sunnah wudu. So you're already permitted to pray. You're making this wudu so you can get reward because it's sunnah, but it's not so that you're permitted to pray. So according to that definition, that wouldn't be included. So that's why that definition is not inclusive. That's why the author said, this definition does not encompass all the kinds of purification, because this definition pertains to only the obligatory purification, and it does not encompass, for example, the Jumu'ah ghusl for prayer, which is not an obligation because one can pray without it. So they gave the example of a sunnah. This is why some scholars define purification as to lift the ritual impurity or to clean the place from najis filth or what plays their role or what is done like that. So that's the definition I mentioned earlier. And who gave that definition? Very accurate, very encompassing, inclusive definition. Al-Imam al-Nawawi, who is a very famous and prominent Imam of Islam and also a prominent Imam within the Shafi'i school. And he's also an Imam in the Hadith. And he's a high-ranking scholar in Hadith. He's a high-ranking scholar in the Islamic law all within the framework of the Shafi'i school. And he was a righteous, pious Muslim.
He said that فعل ما تستطيع به الصلاة من وضوء وصلاة أو ما في معناهما من وضوء وغسل أو ما في معناهما أو أحدهما إذا هو الاثنان.
لا، بالعربية هو عرفت الطهارة بفعل ما تستباح به الصلاة.
Oh, that's the definition.
أي من وضوء وغسل وتيمم وإزالة نجاسة.
هذا
هو كما يظهر خاص بالطهارة الواجبة.
هذا تعريف النووي.
لا، تعريف النووي هو رفع حدث أو إزالة نجس أو ما في معناهما أو على صورتهما. So that definition of an-Nawawi is more inclusive, so it's more precise. So that's what purification is. To lift the ritual impurity, what does that mean? To lift the minor ritual impurity or the major ritual impurity. So when you make wudu for the obligation, you're lifting the minor ritual impurity. When you make ghusl for the purification, you're lifting the major ritual impurity. So all of that is considered tahara, purification. Or to clean the place from najas filth. So if there is urine or feces or throw up or something on the rug or on the shirt, and you clean it off and you purify it so that you can wear that shirt to pray, so that you can use that carpet to pray, etc., so that you can have a valid prayer, then this is also called tahara. Or what plays their role, or what is done like them. The author said, to lift the ritual impurity means either the major or minor ritual impurity, that is making ghusl or jasa, or what plays its role is like, so removing najasa, you can do it with water, or in the case of using the bathroom and cleaning yourself with specific conditions, with toilet paper for example, instead of using water, you can just use the toilet paper. So this is what plays the role of tahara. So it's included in tahara, although it's not like the water. And we're going to get to that, it's going to come, that explanation. But that's just an example of في معنى الطهارة. في معنى الطهارة يعني كاستعمال الورقة للاستنجاء من غير استعمال الماء. It does the same job as using the water to clear the place from filth. What is done like them is like the ghusl for Friday prayer, which is sunnah. It is not an obligatory purification, but it is done like the obligatory purification. So that is what is done like them. أو على صورتهما. And like tayammum, for it plays the role of wudu or ghusl sometimes. So that would be like fi ma'nahu. Any questions so far about that? And just explaining about the definition of purification. What is purification? When we say tahara, what is purification? It means lifting a ritual impurity, removing filth, or what plays the role of lifting a ritual impurity, or what plays the role of removing filth, or what is done like them, what is done like ritual impurity, or they didn't give an example for the filth, they just gave for the ritual impurity. And so it is done like them, like the sunnah ghusl. You do the sunnah ghusl like you do the obligatory ghusl. You wash your whole entire body with water. And the difference is the intention. That's tahara, that's purification. And that's the subject matter of, and why we're using the water is for purification. This is what purification is about.
هذا على صورتهما. الغسل المسنون.
So the author says here, we're on page 23 now in the middle. The author started by mentioning the different types of water because to make purification, one uses water. Whether to make wudu, or to make ghusl, or to lift najasa. Whether it was an obligation or a sunnah, a recommended matter. So, when you're making wudu, so that you can pray, so you can have a valid prayer, you're going to use water. When you're making the sunnah wudu, for example, when you refresh your wudu, when you haven't broken your wudu and you're going to make wudu again to do the sunnah for doing another prayer, here you're not lifting any ritual impurity, but it's still considered tahara, and what you're using is water. The author said, one is permitted to make purification with 7 types of water. So the author here gives this list, which is basically, once you learn the rule, you see that this list, it goes back to one main category. The author said the water from the skies, that is the rain. So if you collect rainwater inside of a container, then you can use that rainwater to make wudu. You can use that rainwater to make ghusl. You can use that rainwater to remove filth. What is meant by that is the water and what is similar. That is the snow and the hail after they melt, because they are both from the sky like the rain. So we're going to go through each one for the 7 types that are valid for purification. We have rainwater. The rainwater is pure by itself and can be used to purify others because Allah Ta'ala revealed in the Quran, وَيُنَزِّلُ عَلَيْكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً لِيُطَهِّرَكُم بِهِ, which means Allah brings down from the sky water to purify you with. Allah makes water come down from the sky upon you to purify you with. So this is a great endowment that we get from Allah. And as you know, if the rain were to stop, there would be great devastation on planet Earth. Whole entire systems would collapse if it stopped raining. So the rainwater is essential to our lives and as human beings. So that's mentioned in the context of showing and emphasizing an endowment that was given to us. And there's many verses like that in the Quran that it is revealed, and there's a list of blessings and endowments that we get as human beings. And to show that Allah Ta'ala has given us uncountable blessings without Him being obligated. So then how could someone reject or not believe in Allah? Then the author mentioned seawater. It is pure by itself and you can use it for purification because the Prophet ﷺ was asked about it. They said when they are traveling in ships, they sometimes run out of water. And they are afraid if they use the water for purification, they would not have any left to drink. So can they use the seawater for purification? This is a good insight. This is a good place to take a moment so you can kind of get a feel for how the scholars of the Islamic law, they had their basics, their fundamentals. The the companions, they didn't do something, and in terms of when it comes to like obeying Allah and fulfilling the obligations, etc., and without asking. So they asked the Prophet ﷺ about this situation. They know they can make wudu with the water that they have, which is like the sweet water, the fresh water that they would need to drink. But they're on a ship. They're in the ocean. And so they have to ration out the water. They have to be careful with not running out of water, because if they do, and then they can't get like a refill from somewhere where they go, an island or a port or whatever, a city that they go to, then they're going to be dehydrated. They're going to die from not drinking water. So because of that, this issue came up. So they asked the Prophet ﷺ, and they gave the reasoning behind it. They said, we have this water, but we might run out and not have any to drink. And so, can we use the water that's around us in the ocean? And the Prophet ﷺ, he answered them. So alhamdulillah, imagine that. If there was ever like a situation that you had and you wanted to know what to do, being able to go to the Prophet ﷺ, and then he gives you the answer, and then only a fool would not do what the Prophet ﷺ told him. Subhanallah. May Allah protect us and you. So what did the Prophet ﷺ, what did he respond with? He gave the rule, or he gave the judgment. He said, هو الطهور ماؤه الحل ميتته. It means, yes, the seawater is pure by itself and it purifies others, and also it is permissible for you to eat the animals of the sea without slaughtering them, like the fish, for example. So the Prophet ﷺ, he gave them the judgment of the water, and he gave them the judgment of the animals in the water. So not only are they able to use the seawater to make wudu and to make ghusl and to remove filth, but also they're able to catch, let's say, the fish and not worry about slaughtering it. Just catch it, let's say kill it, because they can't eat it while it's alive, because it would be torturing the animal, and it's not permissible to torture animals. Killing it and eating it right away. Like, you could literally, the freshest sushi that you can make. I'm not into that. I'll take the tempura always. I don't want to eat the raw fish. It's not my palate. But that's how, and the Prophet ﷺ, he gave the general rule. This hadith was narrated by Abu Dawood, At-Tirmidhi, An-Nasa'i, and Ibn Majah, and also the Hafiz Ibn al-Sakan classified it as Sahih. So this is the basis for that judgment. And so all the scholars of the Islamic law, they saw this hadith, it's confirmed, and it's narrated from so many sources, they all agreed on it. It's by agreement. It's by agreement. MashaAllah. Okay. Then the author said river water. The river water is pure by itself, and one can use it for purification by consensus. So river water also, you can use it to make wudu, you can use it to make ghusl, you can use it to remove filth. You can use it to make istinja. Well water, the water of the well means the water that springs from within the well, because if the water in the well is from another source, then that water is of a different kind. The well water is pure by itself, and one can use it for purification. Because the Prophet ﷺ was asked about a specific well called Buda'ah, whether it could be used for purification, tahara, and the Prophet ﷺ answered yes. This hadith was narrated by Abu Dawood. So we know this from the saying of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said that, or someone asked him about this well. It's called the well of Buda'ah, and the Prophet ﷺ, he said you can use it for purification. So that is a confirmation for us that well water can be used. And of course, the scholars of Islam, they have other proofs and they have other bases, but that's among those. The next is spring water. The spring water is pure by itself, and one can use it for purification, because the spring water is the source of the river, and the river water is pure and purified by consensus. So the spring water is the same. And the natural spring water springs from the earth, subhanAllah. That's also among the signs that are mentioned in the Quran.
What is the difference between spring water and river water? For me, it's the same.
Well, it's saying that, the river water is from the spring. It's saying that the river water comes from the spring. So there's a spring and it springs out, and it just keeps on flowing and flowing and flowing, and the water flows and flows and flows. And then somehow that water finds its way into the ocean. Many times. That's also another of the signs and endowments that have been mentioned explicitly in the Quran, that they are endowments upon us. Therefore, believe in Judgment Day. Therefore, fear the one who will resurrect you on Judgment Day. And therefore, be Muslim. Leave out worshiping the idols, because they don't make any wells, they don't make any springs, they don't make the rainwater fall, they don't make the vegetation grow, they don't make the process that these cows and sheep, when they eat from the grass that grows from the rainwater that comes from the sky, and then that grass gets turned into milk and other things. The idols don't do that. Therefore, they don't deserve to be worshipped. This is the rhetoric of the Quran. The next is snow and hail. The water from snow and hail means after they melt. Their water is pure by itself, and it can be used for purification, because they are both from the sky. So these waters have been mentioned as a listing, to keep the word of the author to his friend. They told him he's going to make many divisions. So basically he said, you can make wudu, you can make purification with ocean water, rain water, river water, well water, spring water, this list. So these are the waters that are pure and purifying that we can use, 7 types. The rainwater, the sea water, the river water, the well water, the spring water, and the melted snow and hail. So basically you just get the snow melted, use it to make wudu or ghusl. Get the hail melted, use it to make wudu or ghusl, or removing filth. Now, our teachers, may Allah Ta'ala bless them and protect them, they have the habit of mentioning an 8th category that was not mentioned by the author, and that is a very special type of water, very exclusive type of water, which is the water that sprang directly from the hand of the Prophet ﷺ. So from his flesh and bone, water came out. And that water is better than all those other waters, because it's blessed by being from the Prophet ﷺ. But of course that water is no longer available. It was used and by over 1,000 people at one time. That's one of the miracles of the Prophet ﷺ that occurred by mass witness transmission, poetic. So that categorization, the categorization of the water into the 7 types of water, that categorization is one way of looking at the water. One way of looking at it. You can make wudu or ghusl water, sea, water, and as it is. Then the author, he divided the water into another way of division. Yani looking at it from another angle, looking at it from another way, water is divided into these sections. And those are the four sections. So the author said at the bottom of page 24, and we're going to finish with that, and then we'll get into the deeper explanation later next week, inshallah, but we're going to conclude with that. Because we want to be with the time so that, nobody, let's say, misses out because they can't go over that time. So the author, rahimahullah, he said that Abu Shuja subdivided the sources of water into 7 types. So one says the water which did not change from the status which Allah created it on earth. It is permissible to use for purification if it did not become najis, filthy, and did not change. So the 7 types of water are the water from the sky, the water from the sea, the water from the river, the water from the well, the water from the spring, the water from the snow, and the water from the hail. The author left out one type which he did not mention, which is the water that sprang from between the fingers of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was pure and purifying. The companions drank from it and they made their wudu from it. It does not exist nowadays. This is why the author did not mention it. The water in the lake and the pond is originally from the sky, so they are included. So someone asks about, what about lake water? What about pond water? So we tell them that water originates from where? From the rain. So it's permissible. And so it's purifying. Then the author said, if one wants to subdivide the water, taking into consideration the judgment of the water, there are 4 types of water. So now this other way that we're looking at it is that rainwater. Is it pure and purifying? Is it pure but not purifying? Is it disliked? Pure and purifying, disliked? Is it pure and purifying, not disliked? Is it filthy, for example? Is it filthy water? This is the next categorization that the author is bringing. So there's water that is pure and purifying without it being disliked at all. There's water that's pure and purifying that is disliked to use it for the purification. And then there's water that it is pure but not purifying. And that water is pure. You can still, let's say, eat it. You can still drink it. You can still use it to cook, for example. But you cannot use it to make wudu. You cannot use it to make ghusl. You cannot use it to remove filth. And then the 4th is filthy water. So we're going to get into a deep explanation of all those next week. So those are the 4 types of water. So the rainwater, when you have it, it's either going to be pure and purifying without it being disliked, or it's going to be pure and purifying while being disliked, or it's going to be pure and not purifying because it was used, or it's going to be filthy, and it meant just filthy, because it was, let's say, touched by unexempted filth, if it was a low amount, or it was changed because of the unexempted filth, if it was a large amount. So that's the oversimplified breakdown. So we're going to get into those next week, inshallah. Are there any questions from anyone? If you have any questions, just put it in the chat. طيب مهند diga
The new word, that was the new word for me is tahara.
طهارة sí طهارة.
Then we can substitute when we speak about the ghusl or wudu. It's the
طهارة includes that.
yes.
Oh, you can say that. You can say that, let's say, making ghusl to pray is tahara, doing tahara. But you can't say that, let's say, tahara is only that. You can't say that questions? طيب نهلل لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات بارك الله فيكم. So basically you can say, you can ask someone, did you do tahara? And if they made ghusl, for example, they can say yes.